Black families have a median net worth of $17,000. Meantime, the median for white families is 10 times that at $171,000. That's from a new McKinsey study on the racial wealth gap. Jason Wright is the co-author of that study. He's also a former NFL player who's now a partner at the management consulting firm. And Jason, thanks for joining us today.
Of course.
I knew there was a gap, but that's a stunning gap.
Right.
10 times as much money?
Right.
What happened? What motivated you to do this study, and what do you think really played into this?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. Yeah. I think often people say, oh, McKinsey's engaged on this, but it's actually part of a multi-year commitment we've had trying to figure out what is the economic value of unlocking diversity in the American economy. And so it was just in that vein, and then a bunch of us had some enterprising ideas to really focus on this topic and see what it meant for the American economy.
Were you shocked by the numbers?
No, yes and no.
Yeah. I expected a gap. I just didn't expect 10 times for the median.
Right. It's difficult to see that number and say, wow, like, how did that materialize? But when you think about it, one, as a personal experience as a minority, and then if you think about the structural barriers that existed prior to the Civil Rights Act and even since, it kind of makes sense. It hasn't been that long where Black people have had full participation in the economy. And so it wasn't terribly surprising, but hard to read nonetheless. But our goal in this was to lay out a framework that put all that data together and allowed people to start to engage in a structured way around solutions.
Part of the gap has to be because of home ownership, right?
That's right. Yeah, home ownership is a large portion of the wealth gap. And there's some structural reasons for that, and then there's some opportunities currently. So we see the wealth gap in 4 components in our report. Community context, which are the communities in which African Americans are clustered in the U.S. And the interesting stat there is we're clustered in, 2/3 of us are clustered in the 16 states that perform lowest on measures of economic output, of education outcomes, healthcare outcomes, et cetera.
Opportunities.
So so there's something about the communities we're in. Then there's the wealth that gets passed down generation to generation. Then there's the income that's built during an individual's lifetime as a participant in the economy. And then there's family savings, which is how that wealth, or that income is then converted into long-term wealth. And all those things are connected, but across those, in that family savings bucket, in that family wealth bucket, home ownership is a major component. And there's a couple things that we think about in that, and how you could impact that. One, historically, going all the way back to 1934, Black people were only allowed to live in certain neighborhoods, Class D-rated neighborhoods. And so as everybody made money with housing booms, that didn't happen for the African American community. But you have opportunities now with things in the tax legislation around opportunity zones, which are intended to send private capital into neighborhoods that have been historically distressed.
How do you make sure that winds up in the pockets of the families living
That's
there and not
right.
developers who are coming and skimming off the top?
In all likelihood, unchecked, it will go to developers. But I think there's creative ways through public-private partnerships, businesses who are incentivized in building up their communities, multiple stakeholders to ensure that it gets done right. But I think that's where we wanted to lay out some of these facts so that you get all those folks to the table and they start trying to find some solutions.